Assist, African support and strength, inspiration and success together. Shout out to Raw Cannon, Nick. I gotta come over there, man. This is wild. Shout out to Mark, good looking. We gotta talk more about that Ghana trip, man. That we need to hear more about that. I'm definitely gonna make that trip. It's gonna be more like a it's not gonna just be a trip though, because that's a major move to be able to reclaim some of that. Like getting out in nature a lot more lately. You know what I'm saying? I would behoove black folk to get back to nature, get back to the land. We really never left, but a lot of what we deal with in American society is it's like a fake society. Like y'all know that a lot of this asphalt, plexiglass, tar, cement, you hear people talking about it messes up the frequencies and stuff like that, but that's a real thing, like being grounded. Even come down to our clothes don't necessarily agree with our frequencies, you know what I mean? Clothes are a funny thing because it's like you would think it's like, people want to cover up for decency, but that's something that you was taught because what exactly is decency? Why can't somebody walk around without clothes on and it not be looked at in such a lustful manner? Because that's the thing that makes it become creepy, become distasteful, become a issue that we would even have to talk about because folks that lived in and around the equator, it didn't even make sense to make certain types of clothes. It's like a bomber jacket would never come to their mind because it's not something that I need. So having the least amount of clothes, but also having a culture that respects the human body in that way and not give it shame, not objectify it, not commercialize the body. Really look at it for a creation of the creator, something that comes from the all in all, something that is magical, that is spiritual. One of the things I think about with Christian folks when they talk about the flesh and how the flesh is talked about in such a negative manner. And I understand people can come and say all these different things about what the flesh is meant because it's funny, the Bible turns into a law book when you talk to people. Like law is very vague and it's up to interpretation and who can interpret it the best can set precedents, and religion is a lot like that. Like whoever can interpret these words the best, because I've heard thousands of interpretations of all different types of things in the Bible, things that are directly contradictory, and people will interpret it however they need to interpret it at the time. And, for me, the Bible is a collection of allegorical and mythological stories that were taught that were used like nursery rhymes and stuff like that to be able to teach the experience of life, not literal stories. But that you can debate with people about that all day. I'm not going to debate with anybody about I stand where I stand with it, but I do know that all of it was created by African folk. So you could pretty much get into whatever you get into. Just don't try to, what is one of my Jones, like don't try to trick God. So if you say this is something that you believe in and you believe in God in that way, don't play games with it. Use it to better you, to master self. Because in Unk theology and my true reconnecting fashion, if you could say that, lifestyle is just to master self. Master your emotions, master, intellect, how you take care of your body, your input, like really master self. People talk about emotional intelligence, work on that. People talk about being intelligent, work on that. Being information laden, like just getting into information so you can understand the world, how it's moving around. And then you can start dictating moves in the world the more information that you have. So that's a part of self mastery, spiritually, just being aligned and, with how the world works. Like, what is your part in it? What is your purpose? Being purpose driven is very spiritual. A lot of times we like to say move with intention. I was having a conversation earlier, and I love that, that word love. I'm love bull. I haven't said that a lot, but I'm love bull. And for me, love is intelligence. I learned, I've read um not Nikki Giovanni. I'm gonna say something about Nikki Giovanni. Not in a negative fashion, but something I kind of looked at and I thought it was like, that's kind of eye opening, with her conversation with James Baldwin. But Bell Hooks, she has a book called All About Love. I read the book twice. I think it's something. What it did for me was made me more curious about like really understanding what your definition of love is and how do you receive it and give it. Not so much just love language stuff in terms of relationships, but like, how do you love your brother? How do you love your sister? How do you love your children? What does that love look like? And for me, it's intelligence, because the highest form of intelligence is sensitivity. It takes thought to be sensitive to something, to someone. It takes thought to be caring. It takes thought to be kind. It takes thought to be diplomatic. It don't really take a lot of thought to be fucked up, to be mean, to be angry, to be tension filled, to want to fight, to shoot, stab, kick. It don't take a lot of brain power for that. It doesn't. So it's a very real thing when we talk about and exploring these different things, and love is one of those things. And reading Nikki, no, I keep saying Nikki Giovanni because I definitely want to say something about, but Bell Hooks' book, All About Love, and then having I think it's Naeem Akbar about, the actual saying of, sensitivity is the highest form of intelligence. And I think that's where it should land at. That's why I'm like so much into critical thought and identity. But what I wanted to say about Nikki Giovanni, because it just kept coming up, her name kept coming out because I was watching it this morning with my brother. And I was watching a little bit of it. I was watching it yesterday too. I don't even know um, what made that stand out to me when I was looking at YouTube, but I was like, I'm gonna check this out. And I remember there was a time where I didn't read Baldwin because I'm like, I'm a straight man. What is he going to really explain to me about, history and stuff like that? And then it's like when you really get to my elder used to always say, it's the message and not the messenger. The messenger, and he used to always have a saying about and shout out to Seeking Boozo, man. I definitely gotta call my elder. Um um a broke clock is right twice a day. So it's not about, the messenger, it's about the message. And then once I started, reading some of his essays and reading some of the interviews that he had, read some of his books, excerpts from his books, watching book TV, I would tell people, watch book TV, man, watch C-SPAN, watch C-SPAN too. Like really, really step into that. You know what I'm saying? I think those channels, the shows, it was really helpful to like get to see the authors that I was reading. It was really helpful to get to see these authors explain why, how they what they were, why they wrote the book, what mood, environments, what was the tone, culture when they was writing the book. C-SPAN 2 is just a real good source for information. And there's a lot of that a lot of government stuff, real time stuff with the Congress and the Senate and all that stuff people should be paying attention to. And I do want to make a point that I've been saying to folks, talking about the presidential election and everything, and people who say, nah, it doesn't matter, it's meaningful. Okay, there is always a part to play. The system always has a part to play as far as people being in it for however, they think they can connect to liberation of our folks. And I wouldn't take that away. I do think all of these things play a part: voting, running for office, informing people about it, and all that. It's just not the end all be all. You should be doing a whole bunch of other things with it as well, independently, linking with, other organizations, doing nonprofit, for profit, the whole nine, just getting in there, making sure military arms defense is there, all of those things, because we do have a history of when we build something and people perceive, white folks perceive some type of progress for black people, it's always a white lash or whatever they call that comes with that, and it's very violent. It's a history of it. And then violence is not just guns and punching and stabbing. The fact that black women are dying at an alarming rate, having children, that's a level of violence. Sending our school to prison pipeline, sending our kids to school to end up in prison, that's violence. Structural institutional violence, cultural violence. So playing with the violence word of not being physically violent, and sometimes you need to be physically violent to defend yourself. That's wild to tell somebody something other than that, and it's a reason why that's been something that people paid attention to. Europeans have paid attention to. When you're willing, it's like Frederick Douglass when he was in that barn. He was willing to die for his freedom, and he realized that, and it also fed into the strategy. You sent me to a buck breaking plantation to be broken. If he didn't break me, that'll fuck up his business, because now other people don't want to send their slaves, their captives to him, because he's going to wind up having to kill your product. So he's not really a buck breaker. So, one, being willing to die, but two, understanding the strategy of what the business was at hand when he found himself in that barn and he fought back. So the thing with Nikki Giovanni was, so like I was saying, I didn't really read Baldwin. I started reading Baldwin and getting a different level of understanding of how he perceived being a gay black man in America, and what that really looked like, and still being able to maintain his blackness, even his manhood, because he says this thing to Nikki Giovanni about what captivity did to a black man's sex, what they made sex into, and how that ruined a black man's approach to just about everything. You know what I'm saying? And him, how, him being a gay man and saying that comes from his experience in America. And one of the things that they were trying to take him away from manhood, trying to ruin him, as he said, and ruin other men in a variety of different ways, because black men are property. They were never meant to be head of household, husband, father. That was never meant to be your role on American soil. So it's always been a plan to make sure that's not your role in whatever way that is. And a lot of adaptations have come over time with the black man, but not aiding and abetting in the things that really is manhood to him. So he was trying to explain Baldwin was trying to explain to Nikki Giovanni how the black man that's coming into your house is already been stripped of everything. And he's been trained by his master, and he simulates the actions of his master. He moves like his master. We are imitation Urugu. Like I said, we're running around here talking about men, but white men are the men who control this, and a lot of the things that how we move, we get from the white man. It's just a reality. It ain't, and it's a certain level of black man. You can't beat the white man. Because every system, there's a bunch of systems that can enter into black folk relationships, male, female. But we don't have a system of our own that we can go to make determinations about who's going to get custody of black children, who's going to get divorced in the black community, who's going to get welfare, and what are the rules and parameters for families getting welfare in the black community. Who's the parole officer? Who's going to call the cops? Do we call the cops? Do we have our own police, our own security, our own judges? Who's producing our TV shows? The images? Who's directing where the music and how the music is supposed to sound and look? Because these are all things that are involved in black folks' relationships and have been. And before that, it was the master directly telling who could get married, who could have sex, and for what reason. What reason are you having sex? That goes back to what Baldwin was saying about controlling the sex. Who are you having sex with? Somebody's telling you who you can have sex with. And when they can have, they're telling you when they can have sex with you and when you can have sex with other people or whatever. What do that do to you when we talk about the secrets of child molestation in our homes? If we're dealing with the fact that we have a history of buck breaking plantations, how do we deal with that when we talk about the history of LGBTQ before it even had that name in the black community? When we talk about banning Jamaican artists because they say Batty Boy dead, and folks that's in the gay community, the LGBTQ community, are saying, how do you get to say these things? But do you look at the history of Jamaica as it pertains to vicious rape and molestation of black men by their masters at buck breaking plantations? What does that do? Where do those men go when they go to their homes? Once man, and if manhood is such this ultra violent gender thing, why was it so important to break black men's manhood like that? And in the other ways, if manhood was not important, and then the manhood that you're putting out there is European manhood, because who's running this shit? European men. So you got men acting like the dominant culture. And then you got black men who went through a processing of how they were going to come out and what they had to follow. Asian men came over, they followed dominant culture in terms of, work, where you live, certain dress, but they wasn't bent, broken, tortured, killed into what you supposed to be as a man. And what you're being made of as a man is not supposed to work because it's not supposed to have a family attached to it. So then when y'all say we can assimilate, this is what you taking into these homes. This is what you taking into these Christian European marriage constructs. And I ain't even get to talk about my sister as a negotiator and how that plays with her brain to manipulate and be selfish. Because of the role she was forced into when they showed her that nobody was there to protect you. Our God is stronger than your God. That's why we can destroy your man in front of you to allow you to know he's not there. And we're going to talk to you because as smart and slick as you can get, if it get down to what we really get down with, you can't do nothing with it because you're a woman and we men. So we want you to be the negotiator, because as soon as you get too big for your britches, I don't even want it to be a contest when I smack the shit out you and tell you to get in your place. And it ain't no black man there to protect you. Because we already tarred and feathered him and tied him to some horses. So you know how that go down. So Baldwin was explaining that to Nikki Giovanni and why your man is acting the way he's acting, why the black man is acting. And this is like 1971. Welfare welfare in the way that we see it now is what is one of the things of the day. You have a lot of black revolutionary women, but you had a lot of these women getting a lot of feminist ideas mixed with revolutionary ideas. So she couldn't wrap her head around why a man who's being mistreated by his master is coming home and mistreating her. Why he can't see that continuum, like, no, have enough not to do this to me. I understood that's what she was saying. But that's what you want a man to do versus this is your feeling as a woman. How you know I want you to see me all broke the fuck up? How you know I want to see you all pitiful and there ain't nothing I can do about it? I'm not saying that's the justified answer. And then the other thing that Nikki didn't look at, I really truly believe, is when running was a source of strategy, because a part of why your man operates like this, because when he did do these dastardly deeds to black men in front of, because we talk about the tar and feathering, but I'm sure black men got putting boiling water in front of folks, got stabbed with pitchfork, got hung, got raped in front of folks. Like literally just to let you know, like this how vicious it is. And he's not a man. I'm the only man here. I know we don't like to think about it that graphically, but I think we do. So you can, so the Nikki Giovanni's of the world and who carry that thought process, because that thought process carries through. If y'all watch that interview and see how we view each other. You know, I could go as far as say the selfishness that is created. The family you created. No, that still is a family that's attached to a larger family. I come from somebody, you come from somebody, and we made a baby. That don't just make us a family now. That's still European selfishness. You want to take me away. And it was a funny thing because James Baldwin is explaining to her about black masculinity and manhood sitting in front of her as a gay black man and still calling himself a man. I'm not saying that that's wrong, because he explained how sex is in this place. Because he talked about wanting to be married and have children as well. But how that sex and how it is and how it was presented to him is one of the things that tried to take him away and did take him away from manhood or being a man. While he still lets it be known, I'm a black man who's moving for black people. I'm not separating myself. Where you as a black woman is trying to separate yourself and say that we are different things. Because she says something like, the baby is going to eat. The baby is going to have somewhere to stay. Don't not come home because you don't have a crib for the baby. Right? But what she said that she wanted in return, him not bringing the crib, was selfishness. Because she said she just wants somebody to come tell her she looks good. Don't worry about not having a crib for the baby. The baby will figure it out. I just need somebody to be here for me to make me feel good. That's what she said. I'm not making it up. Go back and look at it. She said, we need a man to come and tell us we look good. And I'm saying when the idea is about making sure the family is good versus making sure your self-esteem is intact, and I know it all plays a part, I can't go with that choice. But you're telling me that the torture that I've gotten from the white man that trained me to act a certain way, I should be able to refrain from that and how it makes me feel to come home and deal and look at the situation. That's really exacerbated for me because how a man is wired or even was trained at that time, whatever it was. I can't feel adequate in here with the baby not having no goddamn crib. And that just adds up to the other shit that we don't got and how much I'm in the fucking way. And he wasn't saying it like that, but that's how you feel. And you really telling me that you're going to make sure that I'm good in that space when you don't get what you want. Or if you don't like how it's going down, or you feel like, oh, you ain't try hard enough that day. You don't know that. But because you under a depressed state sitting in this house, you going to give me a couple extra words. You sure that's what you was doing? What the fuck you mean? Am I sure that's what I was doing? You know what the fuck I got to go through out there? And you asking me, am I sure? Instead of saying, all right, baby, we going to go to the next plan. You asking me, am I sure? Like you're questioning whether I did the shit that I had to do out there. Like that's wild. So she says to Baldwin, because Baldwin was saying, you know, I was one of 9. My dad wound up going mad because of what America did to him. I had to take care of my brothers. And she kept trying to tell him, like, no, that's not your responsibility. Versus what? Being with a woman and having a child? Taking care of my brothers is not my responsibility? And he was like, nah, like how? Like how that's not my responsibility? Like, she like, no, I'm not saying that you were wrong for doing that for your brothers, but that wasn't your response. And I'm like, what? These are his blood brothers. If he don't have no responsibility to him, how the fuck he gonna have a responsibility to you and a baby? But you telling him this is the contrast, and I hear that to this day. It's the family that you created. Yeah, as it's attached to this other family that we both come from. That's another form of selfishness. And you can't separate this shit. You can't. If we a family all the way. We can't pick and choose based on, you know, your level of comfortability. you ask the question of like, how are we the women, or you are the women, like you are the first teachers. I hear that a lot, like, and I know it's a real thing. I don't know if we really acting on it from 1 to 5 like we should, but I know it's a real thing, and women definitely should and will take credit for doing that. But then when you ask somebody, what do we need from the state, and it's like to make public schools better. When I feel like the response should be my own schools. Why we don't got our own schools? We the first teachers. That's what y'all get credit for, right? And it's a real thing. Why the fuck is we asking the school district to do anything for our fucking babies? If we really want to be honest. And this is the crazy part about that too. We seen it happen when the school district said they didn't want y'all to send y'all kids there for whatever the reason was. Motherfuckers was home. You know how easy that can really happen, because it was a time when it wasn't a thing. When we were farming, before they did this whole industrial shit with the slavery shit, transferring wealth from the South to the North. Changing of ownership, not emancipation, not freedom. We still 3/5 of a man, and slavery is still legal. So we can play with the system. Like, hey man, you can get some stuff out of it, I guess. I'm with that. But let's be real. Again, why are we still sending our children to be educated by our oppressor and think we're going to get something in return? Everybody's school to prison pipelines coming out of everybody's face. And y'all still trying to send y'all kids to somebody else's school instead of just taking ownership and let's get these small schools started on our block. Shit, you could do this shit outside half of the season. It's enough people. So the point that I was making about Nikki Giovanni, and it was just was standing out, is like James Baldwin was giving her a firsthand account of what is happening in the brains of a black man at the hands of this European capitalist racist system. And by the time we got to the place of quote unquote being free and living in our own homes, we were already mangled, fixed, as my brother, shout out to my brother Stan, we were already fixed. And why I bring that to the forefront is because we got all these relationship shows going on all over, and they turn it into good entertainment. But until y'all actually start talking about the effect of racism and how we're conditioned to act and treat each other and view each other, none of these relationships are going to work. And until y'all really understand that actual systems that play parts in our relationship, me and you get into something over our child, we can go to family court. I have no place in my community I can go that will make a judgment that me and you will respect of people that look like us. But we can go to people who don't, who have a loftier system or just a system at hand, and they get to be arbitrator. And motherfuckers really will listen to this shit and have to. And then we actually go run to these systems. But we act like we don't know why our relationships ain't working, because we don't know how to have them. When the last time black people had relationships based purely off of African thought? Shit, African American thought. But you can't really do that because that American shit poisons shit. This is the corrupt organization. You can't really show allegiance and nationhood to an organization, right? And I thought they said organizations were persons anyway. So America is actually a person, right? By law, because an organization is a person. A corporation is a person. Whatever. But yeah, man. Like, we really need to start paying attention that the arbitrators of our relationships, the orientators of our relationships and our relationship values, even down to how we feel about certain stuff. And the feelings that it provokes, this shit is even engineered. Like, we really need to understand that there's been alien influence in our family making. And because of that, we haven't been able to make families, and they keep coming out dysfunctional. So, Nikki Giovanni, that part right there was a part of that, like, feminist, it was funny to me because it's like, you are you are saying that a black man should just be able to, as a human, be able to shake off that type of what's the word, like, subjugating, you know what I mean, like really ripping everything out of a person. If you're talking about manhood, you know as it pertains to the importance that it had to Africanity and African people, it was an extreme importance on manhood, because if it was not, the system wouldn't have had this extreme plan to extract it or destroy it from black men. Why would you have to go that far if manhood was not a thing? Or if it was something that was just general, like all men everywhere act like this. Because that's the other flip side of the whole men thing. No, she tricked y'all. She tricked y'all. Y'all ain't even see it coming. She told you men so that you wouldn't turn around to your men and say, listen, y'all need to raise up and stop this shit. Because y'all can't beat this motherfucker. And see how dudes ever respond to that. On some real shit. And she know it. She know if you're the motivating factor, instead of the detractor or the tear it down or the making me docile because you trying to protect me, that's the trick. Why she support her man. I always be tripping off of it, like white feminist women told y'all men were the problem when their men are running every fucking thing. And Hillary Clinton never spent a day divorced. Bill Clinton never got divorced. While y'all running around here talking about men did it. They played with you. They tricked you. While they still at the crib with they dude, sharing in the power. It's wild, man. It's a wild story, you know? It really is wild to me. But yeah, man, check it out. We don't determine our relationship structures, the rules and regulations. We don't do none of that. Think about it. Where you get your marital values from? The Christian church? That's where you get it from? European Christian church? When did Christianity start? Most of the people that came over here wasn't even Christian. You know, a lot. I wouldn't say a number, but a lot of those Africans that came from West Africa, they weren't even Christians. So the value system goes against the people that came at the beginning, from the onset. And then monogamy is funny because I always joke about this. And it's not really a joke. It's a real thing. It's not in the Bible. But you shaming people and telling them they going to hell if they don't find a monogamous relationship to be in forever. They torture you. They play with you, man. And then the real kicker is you're breeding people. You know monogamy cannot happen because you know that there's more women than men. Not just because it's a thing that usually is in every society, but because you're particularly breeding the people. These black people that you're feeding and stuffing and lying to with this Christian shit. But then you're playing with how they operate. You're playing with their sex. You're doing all of this shit. So when they get in the crib together and try to be in this monogamous relationship, it's fucking possible. It's impossible. He getting raped. She getting raped. He being forced to have sex with all these other women to have babies. She's getting in the house feeding other people's kids and all. It's just a bunch of wild shit. And then they got to come home to this. You know, he been studying all day and she been prostituting in the house all day. And then we got to come in here and try to have a relationship. What? Under Christian values. It's no monogamy in the Bible. I've never seen it. Why are you on a pulpit telling people that every Sunday? Shaming them, lying to them. I'm not saying monogamy is not something that can work. I'm just saying there's a whole bunch of other things out there too. And we need to determine that based on how we feel and interact with each other, how this. And then the thing be funny because people do be making these determinations in certain places, but because of traditional bullshit will give people fucked up side eye when they doing certain shit. Even if it's the wrong shit. Could be the right shit for them. But you're going to shame them so bad that they not going to do it. And it's a feeling that's going to be attached to it. You know, I be like, I don't want to be married. Remember, when, like, motherfucker, shame on motherfucker. You ain't married. You ain't getting married. I don't want to be married. But that shit made you lesser. Why? Because other people around you believe that marriage gave you something. You know what I'm saying? So if you didn't get married by a certain time, everybody would be looking at you like, Why? What's wrong with it? What's wrong with me not being married? Like, I don't see what's wrong. So I'm big on that relationship thing because that's the core of everything. If, like my sis Nick would always say, and I'm always going to champion it, like it's an attack on the black family. That was like her main joint, and she would always say, and she need to come back on the show. She out of pocket. We gonna have to talk. I really, really gotta go talk to her. It ain't nothing happened though. We ain't nothing. She just being all the things that she already is, a great mom, a great friend. And, you know, they live kind of far away. It's just a lot, you know, life be life. And then she got a whole family and she got a lot of roles. There she go again. Shout out to the family. But I'm going to have to arrange something because she need to get back in this seat. We're going to have to figure something out. Your brother got to come through. But, you know, man, the Nikki Giovanni joint, it was just, it was worth dissecting because a lot of that thought is still prevailing with our women. You know what I'm saying? And then I don't think enough get explored about Baldwin's life and as it pertains to LGBTQ in the black community. I don't think we looking at Baldwin enough. Because I think there's a certain other aspect of this thing that's not so inclusive. I do gotta say this. Before I roll out. And I'll talk about the other point next week. I'll remember. But somebody compared the marginalization of our children with the marginalization of LGBTQ. And that's wild to me. I don't agree with that. I think people need to get more informed. Don't do that to our children. You can't link the movements because what black folk has been through in America and go through is completely different than LGBTQ. And then the other part of that is marginalized how? Because in a lot of these gentrified areas in the city, I see LGBTQ flags everywhere. A lot of the folks that live in these gentrified houses, the gentrifiers, are LGBTQ. And I don't see these folks in droves walking 2-3 blocks down to where black people are still being marginalized, a lot from their gentrifying, to do anything of note for black people. Not LGBTQ who have resources, because again, I know my eyes are not deceiving me. I see the flags in all the gentrified areas. Those areas have resources. And I'm just saying, when we start comparing stuff and saying people are marginalizing and comparing them to what's going on with our people, black folk, let's be very clear in it. Let's have a very good understanding of root cause, history, and not like, you know, because it's resources and it's a lot of white supremacy in it too because of white privilege. So how can you be marginalized and have white privilege at the same time and compare yourself to African children? Or anybody could do that. Or African people, or have that thing be, no, it's not. Nah, it's disrespectful to our ancestors. And it's being very disingenuous. So I'm going to leave it with that. This is PSA, Philly Service Announcement. Takeover Tuesday, Takeover Love, Support, Grace, Social Activism, Resources, and Art. I am the assist. Huh? Oh, this is a reentry show too, owned, operated by returning citizens. The Healing Station, y'all already know, 16th and Master, come pop up. You know, we got shit going on. PSA, always check us out. Carlito, you know what I'm saying? Yo, I love black people, man. We out. That's what we doing out here. We did.